a toy for an adult, the adult would be happy. Okay, good morning, everyone. So far, it has been an amazing summer institute, but the epicenter of this week is today. We have very, very special guests, and I will come to it just in a second. We were talking about Janusz Korczak in many different ways as a person with his biography, as each of us has, and what he did and how he developed into what he became. We spoke about him as an educator, a psychologist, a researcher, and today we're mostly talking about him as a person who was by training a medical doctor, but who was also by passion an advocate for children. And today we are mostly concentrating on his medical part and his legal practice, which he would never call legal practice, but what he was doing, he was definitely doing child advocacy in its legal way, protecting children's rights. And we have here today incredible guests, and I want to say, without looking at them, as if they're not here, there are people in life, so I mean in my long life, I didn't say that, I met different people, and some people you meet, you greet, and you forget, or you remember the face, and next time you meet, and it's okay, it's nice. But there are people who make a difference in your life, who you can meet briefly and then you would remember them always, regardless of meeting them again or not, right? And I'm sure you met such people in your lives as well, not as long, but probably among your students or your colleagues or your professors. So meeting with Gilles Julien and Hélène Trudel, this humble couple sitting there, that was life-changing for me, you know. And I was introduced to them by this humble person, Jerry Nussbaum. And when Jerry said, oh, you know, there's a symposium in Montreal on social pediatrics, are you interested? I said, sure, I am interested. But it was also, okay, I would love to go to Montreal again. It would be something. And then I came to Montreal and I learned what I learned about social pediatrics. And then what was most amazing, I heard two of them presenting. And then I heard Judith Linham, who is not here, but this project reaches, and Chris is here to present to you. And I saw all those people who were so committed, like 400 we had at the time, yeah? And I thought, gosh, I lived this long life. I never heard of social pediatrics. And then I started talking about social pediatrics in the United States with the people who consider themselves quite refined psychologists and educators and doctors, and no one heard of social pediatrics. And I thought, wow, something is not clicking. Something is not right. And because of it, it's so important for me here to have them as part of this Summer Institute. And for you, I'm sure all of you know, but it's important to bring this word further. It's important to bring something which the world doesn't know and finally learn. So I put together a very short PowerPoint, just a few slides, concentrating on Korczak as a medical doctor, because this is what's important in this situation. We spoke with you about different hats he was wearing, and the first hat, which was he was trained to be, that was the hat of a medical doctor. And all his life he felt like he was betraying medicine when he turned to actual education, to the orphanage. And here in this, I'm not going to read every quote, but he's talking about that the solution is not always to be found in books on psychology or medicine or anything, only bringing the whole abundance of knowledge which exists in the world in different formats can make a solution right. But what is most important, when we look down, we actually shared this experience with Chris. I was surprised she had the same. Many, many years ago, when my students would go to the children's hospital to play with the kids in the playroom, there were medical students there who were taking notes, who were there for practicing. And what my students noticed, and they were future teachers, they said, can you imagine they look up from their notes, the children wearing masks, children after chemotherapy, children without hair, children who look so desperate, all of a sudden these children smile and laugh. And they look at these children up, down to their notes, not a smile back. And my response was, you know what, they need to look for another profession. Because if a pediatrician does not smile back when the child smiles, especially a sick child, gravely sick, then something is wrong professionally. This person doesn't belong to the field then. Then maybe this person would be a wonderful professional, but somewhere else, working with books or machinery or equipment, not with little children. Korczak wrote not only fiction, not only books for educators, he also wrote medical papers. And I brought you just two titles here at the bottom. But he was kind of, some children considered it a little crazy why we had to step on the scales. I do it every day. It terrifies me each time I'm getting on and anticipating what kind of weight I will see. But and stepping down is kind of a relief. For him, it was extremely important because if a child loses weight, that means something is wrong with the child's health. So this whole idea of checking physical health of a child was very, very important. And as we spoke before with you, it's really such a blessing to have someone as the head of the orphanage who combines two most important professions, a medical doctor and an educator. Then there's real care about a child, because any passionate educator without knowledge of medical science could do something wrong without understanding the consequences of what is happening, just not knowing. Because he knew, that made it, the effect was really, really serious. I put here this long, long note, but the most important, that's again from Korczak, the most important is, we were talking about it already, the symptoms which the medical doctor gets as the symptoms of some disease, there are other symptoms which are for an educator, the symptoms of bad behavior, something was wrong, something didn't go well. And again, in Korczak, the synergy of these two works wonders because he could notice both a cough, nausea, pale face, vomiting, something else, and at the same time he would notice the child is sad or the child is too excited, something goes wrong. Again, you can train yourselves to notice this if you make an effort, but the effort should be there, right? I want to show you a couple of photos now. I didn't check with them whether I can or not, but because we have them published on the journal, I put it on Canvas. I hope all of you saw it. The whole special issue of my journal, Russian American Education Forum, is about social pediatrics, and mostly the papers from Gilles, Hélène, and their colleagues. So these are the photos which they sent to me to post in the journal. That was 2 years ago. I didn't ask the permission. I hope it's okay. Okay. So what I want you to do is look at, well, Hélène never sent her own picture. Well,
no, that's usual.
yeah, it's a usual thing. Well, so look how Gilles looks at the child. Look at the face. I'm just wondering, is it really possible that every educator would start looking at children like this from below up and with the smile like this, really accepting, embracing the child, regardless of what kind of child is that? I was lucky to be invited to their center in Montreal. It's in a very humble neighborhood. But what they're doing there is so important, especially important as it is in the neighborhood where it is, where people really need this kind of services. And here Korczak again is talking about the duration of the child's life. We're saying tomorrow you will be something, and again, we spoke about it already. Children want to be adults. Have you ever thought why? A little girl wants to get on the heels of her mother and put lipstick and say, I am my mother, I'm an adult, I'm taller. Why is that? Why they want to feel and look like adults? And the more we grow in age, the more we feel like it would be better to be a little younger, but oh well. So why do you think the kids want to be older, especially girls? No, actually, I'm taking back. Boys as well. Yeah, boys as well. Why is that, Alice?
Because children think that adults have power. They can do whatever they want to do.
Okay, okay. Anyone else? Jacqueline?
Totally agree. It's just wanting to have the right to do what they feel is in their heart.
Okay. Anyone else? Clay?
Being in charge of their own life.
So, which means if we gave them that power, they wouldn't need to step into the high heels and put lipstick and pretend they're adults. But they feel they lack this power because we impose, because we think we know better. And apparently we don't. Apparently we make mistakes. And Korczak is talking about the number, humongous number of mistakes adults make. I want to finish this with the motto of whole Korczak's life. And we were talking about it. There are different translations. I'm here not to be loved and admired, but to love and take care of others. Again, I can only wish. I know it's absolutely not possible, but everyone in a helping profession field, if people start being really humble, just a little, and feel like we're not here in this world to be cherished, put on a throne or pedestal, being respected, admired for what we are. How about to step down, look up, and believe there are others who are better, who are stronger, who are smarter, and we're here to help them to thrive. When we're educators, we're helping our students to thrive and become. When we're doctors, we're helping our patients to become healthy or help them live whatever is given to them. We are in this helping field. In Russian, there's a difference in two verbs, which there's no difference in English. That is the verb to serve. So there's a verb which says to serve, meaning in its noble way, and there's a verb to serve, meaning kind of humiliating oneself. In English, we say serve. So using this first meaning of the verb serve, if we start serving people without humiliating ourselves, but feeling proud that we are serving, I think the world would become a better place. With this note, I want to give the floor to these two people who definitely serve underserved population, that is children who really need more than what they get. So Gilles Julien, who is a pediatrician and a person who was awarded many different awards, I'm not going into this, but who was given a very special award, that is a Korczak Association of Canada award, and he has all the rights to be called a Korczak of Canada, which is really, I think, a very special title. Hélène Trudel is a no less incredible person who is a lawyer and who does this legal part of the foundation of Dr. Julien and more. And she is a founder, help me, how is it called? Integrated law. And this whole idea about the circle of the child comes from her, and the circles become so wide that they reached Vancouver and British Columbia and the whole Canada. So two of you and Miriam, who works in the same center and was helping with putting together the presentations and works in the same field. All yours. So the way, how will you present? How will it work? Gilles first or Miriam?
It's a workshop.
Okay, great. Go ahead. Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, okay.
I will explain.
Sure. Let me save what's yours.
Here.
Oh, okay. View, presenter view, okay. And you just,
That one, okay.
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you put, oh, you have.
Yes, I'm okay.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Tatiana.
Sure.
Thank you very much. So hello, my name is Miriam Hivon. I'm the Director of Training at the Fondation du Dr. Julien. Actually, I've been working with Hélène and Dr. Julien for the past 5 years, and I'm responsible for the continuing professional education in community social pediatrics. So it's not, I'm louder? Louder, okay. I haven't been presented in English for a long time, so I'm a bit nervous. Please don't hesitate to ask me to repeat if it's not clear. What we are going to do today is to present you the model of the community social pediatrics model. This is a model that is based on an integrated social medicine. This is a model based on integrated social medicine that relies on medical, legal, social science fields in order to address, well, to identify and to eliminate or reduce as far as possible the sources of toxic stress that affect children and their development and their well-being. So this, Dr. Julien will explain it much better than me, but this is what we will try to look at, to explain to you today. This model was developed by Dr. Julien and Hélène, and now it's being implemented in about 40 different communities in Quebec. And it's also started to be implemented in New Brunswick and in Ontario, and in at least three native communities as well in Quebec, all in Quebec so far. So our presentation will have two parts. On the first part, Dr. Julien will present you the community social pediatric model, and then we'll have a short break, and then Hélène will take the microphone to talk about the added value of integrating children's rights in your practice. Our understanding is that you come from different backgrounds, so maybe for some of you this will be new, and for some others it will be more familiar, so we'll try to navigate. Hélène will also present some initiatives that we actually implemented in our clinics, and that were aimed at empowering children and families to make their own decision and to be part of the solutions in solving their difficulties or the problems they encountered. So we will present some of these very inspiring initiatives. My own role today will be to guide you as best as possible through this presentation. We thought about a few activities just to make you reflect also on your practice and maybe connect what we're doing with what you are doing in your practice. So I will guide you through that. I will also try to be, and this is the hardest task, the guardian of time, because we only have a few hours, and Dr. Julien speaks a lot, so I will try to to be the guardian of time for this for today. So. Our expectations or our hope is that at the end of this presentation, you will be more familiar with our 7 key principles that we actually put forward in community social pediatrics. We also hope that you will understand better the added value of referring to children's right to address global health status of vulnerable children. And finally, we hope that you'll be able to articulate some of the concepts that we will discuss today to guide vulnerable children, especially by using collaborative relationships with the child, the family, the community, and the institutions that work with the family and the child. So these are our hopes, and let's try to reach them. In order to do this, we would like to start by taking you to a journey with Jimmy. We thought it would be a good idea to tell you about the story of Jimmy. Jimmy is now an adult. When we met him, he was 6 years old, and the idea to tell you this story is to actually illustrate concretely what our model is, and also to help you reflect about your own practice. So, when we met Jimmy, he was, like I said, 6 years old, and he was already known, I don't know if you use this term in English, but the terror of the neighborhood. He did everything he could to provoke rejection. He was very good at it. Earlier in his short life, he had been sent home from kindergarten and daycare on a regular basis. Nobody will keep him. He was so disruptive, actually, that the school regularly deprived him of his right to education. They were sending him back home. So he was already, at 6 years old, involved in small infractions, and he was already a bully. So the school and the mother were completely overwhelmed. So when they came to the clinic, the community social pediatric clinics, they were asking actually that he be given some medication to control his disruptive behavior. And it was meant to be for his own good and for the good of others, because he could be quite violent. So this is what we had as information when we first met Jimmy. I just would like to invite you to take a moment to write down your thoughts about taking your own practice. Write down your thought about how you would explore the causes that are behind Jimmy's behavior, because obviously he's not behaving like that just for fun. So there are some reasons. So what tools would you have to explore the causes behind his behavior? And also in your current or future practice, what would you do for Jimmy? How would you intervene? So I would just give you a few minutes to write down your thoughts, and we could share them after that, and then Dr. Julien will come and react to these to your to your thoughts, and we'll carry on with the model. So can I just give you a few minutes? And I apologize for those people who are actually at a distance. If you want to do the exercise, I was told that maybe you will be able to ask questions after that at any time, even the people that are on the streaming. Yes. Okay. So yeah, I did. Yeah.
Michael, will it be possible to bring the microphone closer to the desk? That one. No, that one. It would magnify probably the sound. The one microphone which is sitting there closer to the computer desk, do you think it will
Vous avez le micro, ok, parfait. Je vais juste reprendre les questions avec... You need a bit more time, or it's fine? Just a bit more time? Okay.
Miriam, I think they're
Yeah?
okay. They
Yeah?
are fast.
Okay, they were... fine? Okay, so would anyone would like to share his idea about how you would explore the causes behind Jimmy's behavior? Anyone would like to start? Yes.
Oh, I would just want to meet with him and ask him, like, what is his understanding of his behavior? What is his understanding? Like, is there a function behind it? How does he view himself versus others?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I'm in the education field, so I would like to know more about him, his background, his history, the family, and where he's coming from, and meet with him and his family and the educators and counselors and see what's happening, what's going on.
So you would meet with him and the family
Yeah.
to explore the history.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm a family nurse practitioner in the Richer Initiative Social Pediatrics Program, so this is like what I do in my role. So I can talk a little bit about how I would approach the situation and how we work in the schools. And what I would do and what we do is work with the school and the family to gather a really rich history of what's going on in the school setting, what factors are in place, and then also what's going on in the child's social context in the family environment. And really get to know the family well and build a trusting relationship with the family to be able to help and learn their story. And that's kind of the first step. And then also being able, with that trusting relationship, addressing medical health needs, physical health needs, looking at social determinants of health, and then being able to access maybe other medical records or, doing a lot of information gathering, looking at the whole child and the whole situation.
Excellent. Yes.
And within that process, I think it's important to focus on things that are going well for him. So where are the situations he is feeling regulated or calm or engaged or happy? And so this can come from speaking with him, but also helping the people in his life start looking for those areas and seeing how can we translate that from one context to another, so that you can use the skills he has and recognize those strengths and use them as a tool instead of just only focusing on what's going wrong.
Yes. Anyone else? Yes.
So as a daycare teacher, I would probably do is I would observe the child for a certain time, and I will make like a very detailed record of his behavior and what he say, what he does, and I'm probably gonna get connected with a specialist like Clea, and then we will get the child get assessed to see if he has any special needs need to be addressed, to get more information about the child.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes, Karen.
I would be in conflict, and I would be interested in asking more questions about the sources of conflict in his life. So the provoking of rejection, I would want to know what was in his mind when those type of behaviors were happening.
Anyone wants to add something? That's
I might want to know. I might want to know which of his rights are not being respected. From a rights perspective, what rights is he deprived of as a child in his circumstances? What does he feel or his family feel that he is not getting that he needs?
I guess then I would add that his right to identity, and it was that what's he good at? My mom always said each of your kids needs to be good at something, and if school isn't a place where he's good at school, he may be avoiding this to get thrown out. We're rewarding him because we've missed it. Maybe he has the right to accommodation because he's dyslexic, and we've missed his learning style. So he's not good at anything where kids are gathering. So his right to an education is also being denied if we're not understanding who he is.
This is all really excellent questions. If I sort of summarize, you've named many things that will actually is actually part of the community social pediatrics model that we practice, like building a trusting relationship is really at the base of the basis of what we do in order to be able to do something with Jimmy, actually, and looking at his history, trying to understand what's been going on before, what's the situation now. This is also something really important. You named the rights. What rights are we refusing him if we leave him in this situation? Here you named observation. I would observe him. Observation gives us a lot of information about verbal and nonverbal language, is that right? And also the strength. I like this, many of you mentioned this, that not looking just at the difficulties and the problems, but also looking at the strengths and how you can work starting from there with the strengths of Jimmy and what could be done with these. So these are all elements that we also take into consideration in our model. Would you like to add something, Dr. Shin?
All of your answers are really good. It's impressive, in fact. But why it wasn't done before? Why the teacher and the school and the physician who was following that child didn't do that? You know, that's the big question, because we don't have in our institution, it's very difficult to do what you're planning to do. Probably those who works in the institution, you don't have time. You need to do that as a team. If you do it alone, it's more complicated. The doctors usually don't have time to do that. That's where we come with community social pediatrics, developing a way to do it, integrated, different people from different sectors, including schools, youth protection, physician, and everybody, so we can do it systematically with these children. Because you know, probably if you work with children, you know this kind of case. It's a classical case. We could have put child abuse the same way and so on. But there's no method really well organized or enough people to do it that way. So they referred to us because they know we're doing that kind of evaluation, but themselves they could have done it. That's the issue. And like the teacher is really close to the child, but she doesn't have time to get close to the child enough to understand what's going on. So they will eventually send the child for medication. He needed medication at the beginning because he had ADHD, but it was quite more complicated than regular ADHD, and he was very oppositional. You couldn't get close to him. He would defy you right away and insult you or regress you. Okay. I'll give you the answer right away, so because you know, this book, How to Love a Child, from Korczak. This child thought nobody loved him. Okay? That was the big issue. But nobody knew that because he was so aggressive and manipulating people and opposing that he was really not permitting to anybody to came close to him. So that was the big issue. How do we get close to him? How can we go to, because even the mother that was fed up with that, she wanted to put him in foster home, was not really accessible. She was also an handicapped mother. She couldn't, you know, she needs a stroller to walk. They were living in a two-story apartment, and Jimmy's room was downstairs, and the mother couldn't access that level of the house. So he used to fly away through a window at night and you know, fly away from the house. And the mother didn't even know he was away from the house. So the whole issue is how to love a child, how to define a way to make sure that he knows that we love him, all of us, and to use the symptoms, the main symptoms, which was opposition and impulsivity, and to go, you know, I was, from the text you put on before, all symptoms have a meaning. You need to know what's the meaning behind the symptom, any symptoms. The flash.
Arrow on the right, on the computer.
Yeah, okay. So we're going to talk about our model of community social pediatrics, which is really based on this value, how to love a child, in fact, and not be shy to love a child. Okay, that's also something very important, because in our systems, you're not really allowed to come close to a child and say to a child you love him. Mainly at the first visit, you don't do that, and they usually say you keep a distance between your patient because you have to be objective. But if you're objective, you'll never know any meaning. You need to be subjective and get close to the child and close to the family, and not to be afraid of talking about the emotions, in all respect. Okay, that's very important. The arrow. Okay, that was the wrong one. Okay, there's a lot of barriers when you want to access a child and look at the global needs, the rights that are not addressed, and and you need to be very kind of humble when you access these people to make sure they will accept that you get close to them. And that's the main barrier, how to put down the barrier, and there are different barriers, I would say. The lack of real participation of children and families is one of them. Frequently, like with this kid, there were multidisciplinary meetings at school. They talk about the behavior of the child, and they never address really the problem with the child or the family. Okay, he was always punished. He was put out of the classroom. And he was considered a real terror. And the more he was considered a terror, the worse he became, in fact. At the beginning, when I met him the first time, I asked him what you would want to do in your future. He said, either a criminal or a liar. Liar, not a liar, lawyer. Yeah. Well, I don't know why this word is so close, and liar and
Well, that's a great word.
So maybe he told me he would become a liar then, but I understood lawyer. Okay, so that's a real barrier, not to approach the child himself. One of you said you need to talk to the child. For sure, you need to talk to the child, but you need to get close to him to. Not to react to his opposition, in fact. And that's very important, the attitude. That's why usually with smaller children, you will just sit down with the child. You never address a child like that, because he's going to oppose more and more. And you have to laugh also. If the child laughs, you laugh also. It's very important. These are small things, but it's so important when you try to get close to a child. When we address this at the clinic, it's a house, as you've seen, and it's very, it's like their home. It's not fancy. There are coffee, there are fruits and things like that. And when we see the child the first time, we just talk to the child right away, not to the adults. We invite the school, we invite youth protection people, we neighbors if the family wants to come, but we don't address these people right away in the waiting room. We just address the child first, okay? And at his own level, if he's playing with a car, we're going to play with a car with him, without any wording from the beginning. This attitude makes things more easy. And after a few minutes, usually, you invite the child to come with you to check his heart. And the child, most of the time, will give you his hand and come. And you didn't invite the adults yet. And that's very important too, because the child is the main issue. And you consider the child as the most important person. And when that's done, then you can start questioning or asking any issues in the family and things like that. If you don't do that, it won't work. Okay, that phase is very, very important. And then you talk to the people, the adults, to the family, but they're so surprised that you address their child in such a way that you seems to love him, that they will participate also. And they tell us frequently, it's the first time somebody consider us as real person, as parents. You address our child first, then us, then the people who are invited. And this sequence of addressing issues is very powerful. There's also a lack of access to global integrated services in all our systems. You have the school systems who address things their way, the youth protection people who address things their way with their law. You have hospitals who address their things their way also. They all have multidisciplinary team, but it's not really integrated. Integrated between these people, but integrated with the family also, and the extended family. And you cannot address global issues if you don't do things in an integrated way, where the family and the child are the prime source of information and of solutions also. And you tell them, okay, we won't bring solution if you don't suggest solution and if you don't agree with solution. Okay, they're part of it completely from beginning to the plan of action. We also have another important barrier, which is disengaged communities, because we've been told from years to let the government institution take care of our children. And it's a shame because no government loves children. They don't love children. They address children's issues, but to address difficulties of vulnerable children problem, you need to love these people. You cannot love these people if you're not close to them in their home and their community, and if the community is not involved. So community is disengaged most of the time, and we need to work with communities to take back the responsibility of their children. And that's a big issue. Many community groups do that, but they're not integrated themselves frequently. In our main area in Montreal, there's probably 200, 300 community groups who do a very good job, but they're not integrated. They do it their way with their mission, and families cannot cope with that most of the time. So it gives a lot of inequities and barriers to find out, to work in global health issues. There's many strategies to combat adversities, vulnerable, which suffers vulnerable children in vulnerable families most of the time. Where I'm talking about millennium morbidities. Well, social medicine has existed for years, and it was mainly involved with poor people, with infectious disease, with poor life condition, but mainly in prevention. The medical system used to work in prevention with vaccination and food and breastfeeding and things like that. There have been lots of advance in our society from these measures to prevention, but we didn't develop really any strong method to address social issue or social en fait, I have difficulty sometimes to find my words in English, but don't, it will come back. Social involvement of problems in children, behavior problem, learning difficulties, child abuse and neglect are all problems which come from the society. It doesn't come from infectious disease, doesn't come from a virus, so you cannot treat them the same way as you do in regular medicine. And so these morbidities are very frequent in a vulnerable population of children, and we need to find out a new paradigm to address these issues. According to these millennium morbidities, we're facing problems and barriers like powerless families. Our families are powerless. They don't think they can solve the problem themselves. They think they're bad people, and they're told they're bad people. And there's a loss of power of these families, which doesn't help at all the issue of vulnerability. We have disengaged communities. We have also a society which is getting more and more impoverished. The more and more vulnerable children are in the communities. So our strategy is to develop a kind of home, a house in the community where children would find security, attachment, reference if they need, diagnosis, all in the same setting, looking really like their own home. So it's a home where they know they will be loved, in fact. When a child comes to our house, they know they will find somebody who will talk to them, listen to them, care for them, and love them. And they know that. In the community, they go to, in our main settlement, this house, they would come on their way to the classroom and say, can you help me? Or they can be referred by neighbors or by any systems. And everybody knows if they go to, they say, we're going to Dr. I cross them in the street. Sometimes they say, where are you going? I'm going to Dr. Julien. But I'm Dr. Julien. I said, no, Dr. Julien is the house, in fact. And that's very important. That's very powerful because it's a reference for these children and for these families. And for sure, our goal is to become, what we want to address is healthy children. We need empowered family. We mobilize the community, and we're working in a more just society. So that home has been multiplied by 40 now in the province of Quebec. There's also one in New Brunswick and another one in Ontario, and it's spreading. And it's very, we're very pleased with that. And all these homes do exactly the same thing, the same method that I will talk about if I have some time. I just want to remind you that children are the prime source of knowledge and strategy all the time. It's always the child who controls everything that we're going to do with him and the family. Professionals are also on equal foot with family networks. We're all there together. This notion of circle around the child, we call it the small circle when we do the first step of the evaluation and orientation of the child. The professionals are there, but the family is there, and they are there all the time. It's a very, again, a very big barrier to have people accept that the child and the family and the parents are there all the way from the beginning. So getting close to them, evaluating the issues and plan of action, they're always there. We never put the child in another room or the family in another room and talk just between us. That's the worst thing to do. They don't rely on you if you do that. So they're there all the time. And for us, the community also play an important role in healing. That's the only way that you will address children's global need and develop a plan of action which will make sense for the child and the family. The main thing we do in these homes from the beginning is to we call that the small circle, which is evaluation orientation. We need when we meet these people to know exactly what's going on. We have 1 hour or so to make sure we address all issues. You can't do that in 1 hour with a team. If you're alone in your office or alone with the child or alone with the parents or with the interveners, you won't be able to get to the expectation we have to know the history, to know the background, and to make a plan of action to address the real issues. So the method, it's a kind of, it's been called a chaotic harmony or orientation evaluation because we're all around the table, all together, and it goes in different way, and it's always guided by the child and the family. If the child reacts in some way, we'll go that way. If the parents start crying, we'll go this way. So it's not organized. That's why it was called a chaotic harmony. The method is rather simple, but it has to be applied very strongly. The first, it's called EEDA. The first E is really what we've been talking about, establishing a special relationship. Special means loving relationship, respectful relationship, and it's all start there. If you miss that step, you won't be able to go to the other steps. So we're all focusing on that. We smile, we laugh, we always say it's the most beautiful child we've ever seen. You see, that, yeah, you understand that, and we do it because we believe it. Also, they're all beautiful, even though they have so many problems. And when you feel that you're getting close to them, then you can exchange information, okay, and go rapidly to the real issues. But go rapidly to the real issues and meaning of the symptoms means that you cannot do it with a test or a pre-established questionnaire. You cannot do, we never do that. You have to feel it. It's a question of feeling. So you have to feel the child, mainly the child. So when we're in the room to evaluate the child, you have to always see the child, okay? It's a table, it's like a kitchen, but there's a place where we can examine the child, there's a place where the child can play, and he's invited to go in any way, in a place. If you say, I want to use your stethoscope, you say, you can play with my stethoscope, okay? It's yours. And observing the child will tell you right away what's going on. Not verbally most of the time, but you can develop a way to decode a child. I wrote a book on decoding. It's going to be, it's translated in English, but it's not published yet. How to decode the child. And that's really very interesting to do that. It's a challenge all the time, but it's always winning all the time. I had two twins last week. it was very special because I didn't see them. It was the first time I saw them. They were referred from the school because they had behavior problem, different behavior problem, both of them, a boy and a girl, 6 years old. And one of them, you know, when they came to the clinic, the mother was very nice, smiling. She didn't seem that vulnerable because she was, you know, she was tall. She said tall and strong, and so I asked the child to, when they arrive in the room, you do what you want, okay? Because I understand that there was quite a dynamic between the two children, and I said okay. And they decided to go to the place in the room, and I decided to go and play with them without talking with the mother anymore. And we always work with, you know, there's a physician, a social worker, and people invited from school, from different organizations. So they sat at the table and we played. And rapidly I asked, who was the firstborn between you two? And the boy said, her. I said, you were the first. She said, yes, I was really anxious to go out. And she said that like that. I said, oh, and about you? No, I was the second, but I wanted to stay. She said, why? He said, yes, it was dark, but it was so nice. And I wanted to stay in. I said, okay. But you see, I knew right away, you know, they put me on the right track right away. And it happened, and then the mother started crying, just after a few minutes. But we had the link rapidly, and it was a real secure attachment problem with different behavior. The girl was very dramatic. She was a comedian. She had so much talent, very strong child, but very aggressive. And we find out rapidly that, I said to the mother, why are you crying? She said, oh, she's so aggressive with me. She fight me, she hit me, and she made huge tantrum most of the time. And the boy was different. The boy was very silent, very close to the mother. When she started crying, he came right away to her and entered in her, really. So we addressed it, you know, it's a good example. It's an easy one, but when you observe the child and you get close to the child, they will put you in link with what you have to do. And it never fails, in fact. And it's a very interesting practice to do that because you learn more and more from the child. And then when you come to action, they will suggest different action. And you know already that they have some power that you will use. The girl, she was. I said, you should be a comedian or something. I said, no, I want to sing. Oh, fine. We have a garage of music where you can come and sing with us. You see, you just develop your plan of action from what you gather from information. But you should not follow a line. You just let you guide by the child and the family. If you follow a line, because you've been pre-trained to diagnosis and to method of diagnosis, it doesn't work with social problems and diseases. Then you decode the third one is decoding knowledge and experience. You just put on the table at one point, you say, okay, I have enough information. I think this might be a problem. What do you think? And they have to express themselves, okay, like you did before. And the parents are invited to comment on that. That mother said, oh, I was so impressed because you right away found out what was going on. And now it makes sense to me, but I didn't see that. Then she will accept to be helped. we have art therapy, musicotherapy to help this kind of problem. And we call it Ziad, with the mother and the child and so on. So we have tools to do that, but she accepted right away to get involved with an educator and a art therapist to get involved. And the child will come to the Garage of Music because the boy wants to play guitar. We have guitar lessons, which is fantastic. You see, the plan of action is not medication. It's something to realize a dream of a child or a strength of the child. And then you may think of medication. Our case before, he needed medication also to, Jimmy, to decrease the impulsivity in opposition. But the other issues were more important to do. So you just add different action to make sure it fits with your plan for global health. Plus fort? Okay. Okay. Yeah, Jimmy. C'est ton tour? Okay. I'm a little bit mixed up, I mean.
Sorry. I just wanted, well, Dr. Gier just presented like the main method that we use, establishing a trusting relationship, sharing information, trying to build a common understanding of what's going on with the kid and the family, and then setting a plan of actions that start from the kid and from the family. I just wanted to go back to Jimmy a little bit to show you what we discovered using this method, what we discovered about Jimmy. So when we met him, through discussion, through sharing, actually you met him with his mother, and the school was also present at the meeting, at the first meeting. And what was discovered is that Jimmy's father was in jail since he was born, so he's never really been in touch with his father. His mother lurched from depression to depression, so she was sick. Most of the time, so she couldn't really take care of him properly. She had to take in roomers to pay the rent, to actually be able to pay the rent, and the fridge was not always, well, actually most of the time it was empty. So Jimmy just started life in a hard way, and he had to count on himself to actually go through life. So he learned at a very young age to model, to compensate the fact that the mother was not really there for him. So this is what we've learned from this sharing quite rapidly, I think, during the first meeting. And it was clear for us that if nothing was done, I mean, what were the options for Jimmy? He would probably go to a school for kids with behavioral problems, which will probably be far away from home, and which will probably increase the chances of becoming a dropout, or yeah, this is what we see usually. And he could also risk of hanging out with offenders and sinking into some criminal behavior. So obviously we had to do something. So now what we're going to present to you is the 7 key principles that actually guided our actions with Jimmy and with all the other kids that we meet. So I'm leaving this to you.
The keys are important because everything I told you about is kind of...
What
you don't understand me in the back.
Understand you, we can't hear you all the time because the fans.
We try to switch it off. Michael, if you can maybe check, because I tried, but I guess it doesn't like my fingers.
Okay.
Or if you want to move to the middle, it's very
No, I'll come close. I'll come closer. The same I do with children, in fact. Yeah, the voice is fading away anyway. Yeah, the keys are important. If you remember the keys, the method comes easier. Okay. Key number 1 is really active listening. Yeah, we talk about it, but it will make it more standard. active listening and taking lead from the child. You see, that child, we're in the back street where the house is. And, you know, we meet with people, we gather, and these are some parents and interveners. And I'm quite close to that child. So I was taking the picture. And he's very, you know, he listened to me all the time because we're close. And if something happened, he'll tell me right away. If I ask question, he will talk to me right away. And we entertain this way of being close to children by playing with them outside, you know, meeting them in the street and at the garage of music and things like that. So we have all the setup to be close. We're very close to school, so we just walk on the street, and when they pass in the morning, we say hello, and that's it, you see. But that's very important. Key number 2 would be to identify children's needs. You all know about global needs, you know, related to physical, emotional, mental, cultural, spiritual. We know that. But it's difficult to address these issues, you know, just physical and then mental, because they're all so linked together, mainly with the issues of mental health that we have. So, you know, mental health for us is probably 80% of our children with anxiety and things like that. So you have to address things differently than usual. And in the periphery of the circle, these are the strengths that you need to work really with an action plan which is global. So you need to address stability. Most of these children don't have stability. So you just define a way to do something more stable for them. Our house is something stable. It's been there for decades. I'm there since decades. So they can rely on that stability if they don't have it at home. And we invite the parents also to see our house, how it works, and to learn more to be stable themselves, you see? And that's really the way we work. Competence. We know these children, Hélène will talk about it, have gift and strength. So we try to know what are those gifts and to address them and to support these gifts. If they, I talk about the garage of music. Garage of music is where children can do music for free in group and have people who love them too there. So we develop their competence in different way. Balance, nothing is balanced in their life. They don't know what it means to have a balanced life. So we also work on that with the families. Motivation, they all bring us their school report card. I want to see the report card when we make the follow-up because I'm interested in that. Most of the time I ask parents, how's the report card? Is it good? Oh, I didn't look at it yet. You know, I lost it. But we want to see this report card because it's important for the child to be motivated to have good academic results, and the child is pleased to see that we're very interested, you see. Identity is, Chris mentioned identity just before, is something very, very strong. It's one of the most important motivation to development. And these children don't have much identity. They don't know who's the father, why this guy is at home. He's not the father, he's different, he needs change every 6 months, and so on. So we work on identity. They identify to us. All the interveners in our home know that they have to attach and identify the child with us to complete the identity. We have summer camps for some of our children, and it's very surprising because when they come back from the camp after a week or two, sometimes they go first to the interveners before to the parents, you see. So we don't replace the parents, but you know, we'll hug the child and bring the child to the family. the social issues, they don't have a social life. So we organize all kind of activities to show them how to socialize, in fact, and how to get to participate in a group, for example. And security is the same. We're a place where we offer security. If they're insecure, they can come to our place and we'll talk about it. So keeping in mind this circle, when you address, when you evaluate a situation, a family situation or a child problem, is very useful to define an action plan. On est-tu dans le temps? Oui. Okay. The third one is we talk about it too, decoding verbal and nonverbal language. Verbal is well, when they talk it's fantastic, but they'll never tell you with words what they're suffering in their emotions. So you need to use the nonverbal decoding to address this issue. And you just playing with the child, you know a lot, and how he reacts, how he gets angry, and that all fit in the 1 hour first evaluation that we do to decode the nonverbal language. This child is in fact autistic. The father is very, very close with that child, and when we address the child that way, lower than the child, at the left it's an educator. In the family, you can decode lots of things already in that, and it's also very very powerful for us because you know that you're on the right track. Even when you do the exam, we always do a physical exam, in fact, when we do the evaluation. We're a physician also. Yeah. And just the child lying down like that, I wouldn't check the child like this because the child would be very insecure. So you need to really to address the child like this, putting your hand on the tummy and say, oh, how was it last night? Was there many people at home? Because I heard that there was a fight. You say, oh, yeah. So you see already the anxiety lowering because you address the right issue, and he will confirm that your hypothesis that he didn't sleep well because there was too much noise and alcohol abuse and things like that at home. You know that just by being there with the child, but the same level.
We spoke about it in education, exact same thing. When the teacher is above,
oh, yeah?
Nothing happens. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
The teacher should be at the same level, right? We spoke about it.
Same with you. You're there on the table. I'm here.
Yeah.
You won't be
you
too
have to
much.
go forward.
You'll freak out probably. And the child, it's worse with the child. So you really to address the child at the same level. It's a key. Okay. The other key is that's important. The Community Social Pediatric Center at the center is really a wheel to engage other wheels, and nobody does that really the same way we do, addressing fundamental needs, global needs, health determinants, children's rights, all together because they're all the same. In fact, if you know, it's different wording to say the same thing. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
At what we're talking about now, the orientation and evaluation meeting, you don't have all those groups there.
We tend to. Yeah.
So you
They're
have.
all invited.
So let's take the example of Jimmy. Who was there? The teacher?
The school was there. The mother, the mother could come, even though she's handicapped, because we make sure she was there. Youth protection was there. Who else?
Was youth protection there because there was a file open?
Oh yeah. It was already open. Yeah, because he was so. He was
Disruptive.
they're running away frequently, so the youth protection was there, and they all wanted medication at that time. But at first evaluation, we invite social services, education, help people who are involved. Sometimes we may be 15 around the table. At first evaluation. Oh, yeah, because
And
the more
community, people from the community, I mean, there's the
community
family network,
groups,
so there's some
they
friends,
care.
like, but the daycare
neighbors,
center, the neighbor,
friends, extended family.
people
The more
from
we are, the more powerful it is. Okay, that's we didn't put it as a key, but when you have 12 people around the table who take care of the child, different ways, different plan, frequently they have 3, 4, 5 different plan of action. Nobody integrated that. That's the place where we're going to go deeper in the understanding of the symptoms, get close to the people, try to make one plan altogether. Put all these plans, in schools, yeah, they call it the plan PI, plan intégré. But it's integrated within the school. It's not integrated with other people.
That's a 1-hour meeting.
Yeah.
You got 15 people around the table.
Yeah.
Pure logistics of it, I'm just kind of thinking to myself.
No, I love that because, and most of our, they have to do that in all the new centers that opening. It's the method. You have to learn how to, I talked to you yesterday about the chief of our orchestra. You need to orchestrate that. Give the possibility to everybody to talk, but not too long. Address the real things right away, but you guide that. Okay, why do you put this child out of your classroom? Oh, I cannot stand it. He always run. He stand up. He doesn't raise the hand for question. He bug other children. Okay, that's all I need to know. Then what are you doing youth protection? Is he neglected? Is he abused? What's your plan? Okay, but you take time for all these, and then you as a chief of orchestra, you say, okay, now we have an harmony. What can we do together? But in 1 hour you can do that. But you have to manage the time. You have to address the real issue. You have to say, okay, the child said me while I was examining him that there was a fight recently at home. Is that true? What can we do with that? But it's possible to do that.
So you move to a different level of discussion then, and this now you're talking to the
But the
professional.
method, you see,
What's the relationship with the child? What's going on?
That's
It's important where you play the music, and so often we have these meetings in a room that belongs to child protection, or in the school, which is a place where the child is miserable. And the difference is that you guys have a space, and we use our space where it's a neutral space, where it might even be a community center. It's where the kid has good experience, where the family feels on equal footing. But it's terrible to bring families in when you've got 30 people around, and mom, who didn't like school either, is overwhelmed. So you need to go into kind of Switzerland. You need to go into
It's not
neutral
neutral, in
place.
fact.
And that's what I think people miss here as teachers. Having these integrated case managements in the school is often not the right place. Move it in the community center, move it in the neighborhood house, move it into the after-school care, move it into your center if you have it. Don't hold it in your territory. You're in power.
Completely right. Sometimes, frequently, in fact, we have the social worker from youth protection. The mother ate her. Okay, she don't want to see her because when she goes to her home, she looks around and see if there's food in the fridge, and so she ate her. She don't want to see her, and usually they would sit like that, the social worker there, and I said to them, she's part of the team. We need her. Okay, look at her, listen to her. I don't ask you to love her. Just don't block her. Okay, but you have to deal with these things. But again, it's rather easy to do if you manage it well, if you respect people, if you give many space to the mother, the father, and the child, And while you talk, I told you just before, you observe the child, because the child will, sometimes they play, okay? And then we talk, and there's this issues of physical abuse. Okay? And we said, oh, you hit the child then. And other people are there. And then the child is playing. You look at him, he look at us, because he knows you address the right thing. And frequently he will come. So it means really that you're on the right track. You address the right issue. So, but interveners would say, no, we don't want to talk about that in front of the child. Why? The child knows he's been witnessing or victim. So we address the real thing. And the child will agree with me. And you can also address the child and say, what do you think? Should we talk about that? Yes. Okay. But you, as a chief or orchestra, you need to always look at the child, make sure the family is comfortable with that they agree. We talk about these issues, but they all agree. They come for that. They come to find a different solution, a new way to address a child who's not happy, who's aggressive, who already is a criminal at 6, 7 years old. So you're addressing real issues, but you have to address it the right way. You just don't go around and, I think, I would be surprised. Maybe the child won't address that. Yes, we address it with the child, with the family. And that's how it works, and that's why it's so powerful.
Can I just add something? Want to add about this question. Dr. Julien is really good at orchestrating the group when it's there, but there's a preparation to that meeting. There's what we call a pre-evaluation, where we actually contact the family and we decide with the family who will be attending the meeting. So yes, all these people, all these institutions can be invited at the table, but it's always with the consent of the family. And we invite the people that are already involved with the family, of course, so that are significant to the family.
Is that true of you? You have this pre-evaluation and orientation. This is a pre-discussion that you have
Yes.
with the parents.
Yes. Usually a social worker from our clinic will do the pre-evaluation. We'll call the parents.
Yeah.
Let's say we had a reference, okay? They
Yeah.
want to meet us. So they will call the parent and discuss, explain what will
Explain
take
the
place,
process.
the process, so they don't arrive
Yeah.
at the meeting with surprise, what are all
Yeah.
these people doing here? It will happen that the families will say, I don't want them there, and we will accept that, right?
We'll
For the first
discuss
meet, we
before.
will discuss
Yeah.
the added value of having these people there, but if really they don't want it for the first meeting, we will accept that, okay, let's not invite the youth protection to
Yeah.
this meeting, but then we will make a link with youth protection.
Yeah,
We
it
will
seems
inform.
to me what you're doing in that pre-meeting is you are in fact mediating with the family to help them understand the benefits of
Yes.
having the social worker
So,
there.
yes,
And also learning, I'm speculating, learning what you will need to manage at the meetings to help the parent feel safe with the social worker. Is that
we're not going necessarily that far,
far?
at that first meeting. It's a meeting usually on the phone, and we collect a few information to understand the demand. What is the demand? Why are they coming to us? But we don't dig deeper than that. That will be done at the evaluation
The
orientation.
main blockage would be with social worker from youth protection.
Yeah.
The school, they always agree. They come and they invite themselves who they want. They care. They would accept probably 98%. Youth protection is more touchy because they have such power. But I usually would say we're there, okay, to support you. If the youth protection, if we disagree with youth protection, we will disagree in front of everybody and say, and why. And then we negotiate, we mediate to arrive to a point where we can share a common action plan. If the plan when the youth protection comes and say, what's your plan? We'll put the child in foster home. Say, maybe it's a little bit too rapid. Can we do something else? Okay, and then we're used to work with them now. At the beginning it was hard because we need to fight in court against youth protection when we didn't agree. As expert of the family, we're always been considered, even in court, as expert of the family. So we can go to court as expert. And that's very interesting in front of a judge. But now we don't go really very often because we develop tools with them. Hélène will talk to you about the circle of the child she developed with youth protection. So we're now more in a position where we can talk, and they will agree that we tried the last things to do before putting the child in foster home if we think we can succeed, you see, and if we can assure some security also. But we're so linked with the community that we have action that we can take that the youth protection cannot do. In fact, they don't have time, they don't have the tools, they don't, they just apply the law. But that's a big controversy still in Quebec. We have the youth protection agencies on observation.
I wanted to bring you back to the idea of Korczak that adults should serve as translators, as interpreters. My understanding of what Gilles and Hélène and others are doing in the center, they interpret the world of caring adults to the children at the level children understand. They are unpacking care at the level that's socially, emotionally, physically protected for children, but the way children understand in the children's language and also on the emotional level, when every child and every adult will get it that you are caring of him or her, right? So it's a touch. It's the way the child is given the right to be the first. It's the way the person bends. It's the way who sits next to the child. It's every little gesture. It's not only decoding the language of the child's body and movement. It's also decoding the world of adults to the children, but at the level for children to understand it. Does it make sense? For me, this is what should happen at any level working with children. And I also wanted to add that in special education, there's a concept of a circle of friends when any child with disabilities would meet with the people who are considered his circle of friends, including teachers, parents, etc. And together they work out a plan what to do next, how to help. So having this circle, by the way, the idea of a circle is most important here, that the child feels in this protective bubble. And the major word, I think, is care. They feel it on a physical, emotional level, and then they become open.
I would just add, in my experience, often the conflict comes from the miscommunication, but it's not just translating to the child to the adult, it's translating between disciplines as well. Because they often use different languages and different ways of explaining things. So it's often you need a communicator who can explain the different systems language.
Part would be, that's an old slide, but it's very interesting in clinic to use it also in your mind. So there's the development pathways and the experience the child, the adverse experience, in fact. And the more loss the child has, different kind of loss, it can be somebody who died, it can be being displaced of families, anything you can think of adverse reaction. When they lost there's too much loss. There's less attachment, less identity, less resilience, and that's where you're going down, okay? And most of our children, the children we see are on that low slide to criminality or drug abuse or anything like that. So we create success, small success, very, very small one at the beginning. Music, they want to play sport, they want to learn how to boxing, you know, anything they want, we'll address. We'll try to put them in different course and to create attachment and an identity. And that's a very strong method because it works. You develop more self-esteem, more confidence. They become secure. They learn about a balance. You know, they start beginning again or trusting adults. And still, it's related to how to love a child. Okay, you just respond to their needs, what they want, what they ask, and the plan of action. The first step of the plan of action is creating success, all kind of success, and it works pretty well. So when you decide the plan of action, you keep in mind it's related to attachment, to identity, it creates resilience, and it's the most powerful tools for development, successful development.
When you're talking about attachment, are you talking about parental attachment, or what do you mean by attachment?
Adult attachment. Any adult, any peer, any... We have different programs. We have a program of like Big Brother, Big Sister, we call Big Friends. And they're there to create a normal attachment. They're invited to create attachment. The interveners are invited to create attachment. That's the difference between different systems where you cannot attach. Our system means you have to attach. If you miss that, you miss one of the most powerful tools to a better development of children, a better life expectancy, everything. We know that the science evidence is more and more that to love a child, to get close to a child. It makes the biggest difference because it creates attachment, secure, creates identity. It's better than any program or anything that you can put on. Love a child, you'll succeed with the child. And you know, we think it's the best thing to do, but it's now more and more scientifically proved that that's what makes the most powerful change in life. And it's fun to do. That's the only it's fun. It's very interesting. I'm so pleased to do that. You know, I won't stop. In fact, I told Jerry, I'm not close to retreat, but I should but I don't want to. And because it's fun, it's empowering me too. So why not do it, in fact? The flesh. We mobilize family for sure. You know, all kind of activities with families in the back street. Here they play there with the musical therapists with their kids. You know, it creates a sense of belonging, of security also. We mobilize the community in different ways also. We have the food in you know, all kind of situation that we can get closer to the community to help. We have lots of volunteers who works in our organization. You know, many of them, you know, just come to, and they used to tell us when we thank them, they say, "No, we thank you. It was empowering for us and a pleasure." So it's made with pleasure too. Okay, Jimmy, we're back to Jimmy.
Jimmy, no, sorry. Oh yeah, back to Jimmy. Maybe a few more words about mobilizing community, because I think we're doing it in a various way. Community is mobilized also when when it's at the table with the child, because like teachers are part of the community, and where they're at the table because they care about the child that is there, about our Jimmy, it's a kind of mobilization, and they go back to school with a different point of view on Jimmy and different plan of action to help him reach success in his studies. So this is a way of mobilizing community, teachers and all the people that are around the child that are not part of his family are the community, and we try to work with them. We also mobilize community in different ways, like involving people at the centers to work with the child, to do activities with them. We mobilize community to help us raise funds to actually provide services to these kids for free. So there's different level of mobilizing the community for us. What I suggest before we actually take a short break, you see here the 7 key that Dr. Julien just explained. I would like you to go back to our Jimmy and maybe just pick up 2 of these keys, any key, 2 of them, and just brainstorm for yourself what would you do for Jimmy having this key in mind. I just invite you to pick up 2 and brainstorm, and then we'll share what could be a plan of action for Jimmy if we use these 7 key activities. So I'll give you like 2 minutes just to brainstorm, and then we'll share your ideas about, especially in the community here, what's available for Jimmy in Vancouver. So if maybe I could just remind them to you. So what is important is active listening and taking our lead from the child, always taking our lead from Jimmy, identifying and meeting Jimmy's needs. What would be these needs? Practicing the art of decoding verbal and nonverbal language. What would we pay attention when we meet Jimmy and his family? Linking services to ensure cohesion and care. What are the services that are available in your community and that could be helpful for Jimmy? You could help him with these services. Empowering Jimmy through opportunities. What would be the opportunities that you will grab and use to help Jimmy experience some successes? And then how you would mobilize Jimmy's family, and how would you mobilize the community around Jimmy. So these are the 7 keys. Just think about some ideas and we share them. And then we'll take a break.
Services to ensure cohesion and care. I think it's a very big factor for some kids, because if you have all the people with the kids involved and all have the same goal to help the child and to satisfy his needs and help him, then it's much easier somehow instead of going different ways. In my school, for example, we have the Swiss workers, because we have lots of refugees from Congo and Rwanda. And these Swiss workers, they are the link for us because they know the family, they know the parents, they know the background, they know the child, and they know what they need. So, for example, how to live in Vancouver, where to go, how to use the bus, how to go to activities like swimming pool, and how to behave in a public social event and all that. So it's very important for us to have all these people to be linked with and understand the family and community and the child.
And that the people will link all
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
This is what we're trying to do also.
Because you can mention actually in one of the slides the cultural aspect, and the cultural aspect is very big in some settings, because when you have somebody who came because they had to, it's not because they chose to, they had to come, and they don't really choose a city, they don't choose a community, and they have to live here and how to be able to communicate and share and not dismiss them because they are from different countries. Yes.
The cultural and spiritual needs are very, very, very important. We didn't talk about it much, but a lot of influence we had in developing the kind of approach we developed came from the medicine we have in the Native population. It looks the same kind of circle. It came also from transcultural ethnopsychiatry. They developed a method which is very close to that. I was much inspired by these people because they address mental health in children the same way we do with breast. The child is at the center. There's a lot of people around from the same cultural background, but also other culture, because the mix of culture is also very powerful. And they address the issue the same way. They discuss the child is always there at the center, even a baby, he will be there. And the effect of that circle is so powerful. But the cultural aspect and the spiritual, in different communities in Montreal, we use also the religious people from their own religious to come into circle and even at the evaluation to define a plan of action which will make sense from their cultural or spiritual belief. So just addressing these issues with secure these people a lot because we respect their culture, their religion, any religion, and we use it as a tool to support the child development. And they frequent the rabbi, the priest. When they come, it's very, very interesting.
So for example, in your own community, if you had a Jimmy, what sort of resources could you help
Well,
them
it's very
with?
difficult in our community because we are American schools in an English setting, and some parents don't speak English, so we always have to have somebody to be able to translate. And sometimes we don't even speak French. The parents might speak their own language, dialect. So it's a whole thing about communication, like being able to translate, not only translate the language, but also all the aspect of the cultural and it's a whole different dimension. And so we try to, we have those Swiss workers which are very, very, very valuable in our community. But we also have all the other services that we can access, the social workers.
What we've seen in the inner city, it's much like this, that potential for clash of communities as we brought Syrian refugees into a mostly indigenous and historically intergenerationally poor community and then an Asian community. And it was really the brilliance of one of our first nurse practitioners to listen. And they say, you only have services for families that have problems, but we have no place to gather. So the Bright Family Futures chances to share food and food together, different food together, and the families set the agenda instead of the health services. And then more recently, one of our counselors started the ice cream social to bring the Syrian families. So because if the parents aren't together, the kids are fighting. It becomes the Syrian kids against the native kids on the soccer field, or they're fighting on the basketball court for time. And then they start to see their parents together. And the little kids together aren't racist, right? And then the youth problems. I think we have to think about these disengaged communities to engage and empower them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jerry, okay. Did you have any suggestions for Jimmy actually?
I want to add like another caring adult to his circle. that's sort of there for him, like a youth worker or somebody who's sort of that, another role model, another protective adult who can help them guide social situation with peers, with, so that he feels that he's got somebody there who's just for him.
In fact, we offered him a big friend who raised money to send him to a private school because he was so bright, so intelligent. So that started to change his life. He was not in a poor area, vulnerable, where he could fight and be a kid. He saw that he could succeed because these children in private school, you know, they have money, they have all things, and he wanted that to happen in his life. So he might be more of a lawyer than a criminal. You can raise money, you can make money in both situations, but I think he saw that. That was very interesting. And the big brother is still there. It's years now. Ça fait combien d'années ça? Anyway. And he even did a movie of this story with his small brother. And he's still there in his life from when the mother died after a while. And les solutions. She doesn't want me to tell you already all the solutions, so it's your time.
Yeah.
But we put a big brother.
That was one
big,
of the solution. Yes.
I think in terms of addressing his needs in the whole picture, I want to connect him to primary care services, make sure that he has access to that and his family, and then linking them to pediatric specialist services if that was something that he needed, looking at mental health supports, public health services can often provide lots of different resources to kids and families in various avenues, and then looking at what community supports are there that would meet their needs, like food security is an issue for them, and there are many food programs in the community, and then like Bright Family Futures is has health and food and community and connection, and so starting to build a network for this family that would meet some of their social context, kind of social determinants of health, basic needs, and start to build them a network of support where they felt comfortable. A lot of the work we do is in places where families are, where they have trusted relationships, where we can bring these services to them and they can engage in a way that works for them in a responsive type way. So
Exactly. That's an important thing that we're doing. Yes, you look at the resources that are in the community, but you don't just send them to these resources. That won't work, right? So you go with them, or you create a link between them and the resources so that they can trust these people, and after that they go by themselves. But yes, you have to go like one step further.
Is separate from our program, but we invite them to our townhouse clinic so that we can do those intake appointments together, for example, instead of sending them there to randomly drop in and have this really invasive, extensive intake appointment for mental health. That's scary for them. It's unknown. So for us to be able to do that, to facilitate that child getting access to the services that they need, it's so important. It's key.
Absolutely.
Just mobility for family having to go to the different services is already a barrier. So if there's a central community place that
Yes. Yes.
Hi, Will. I'm thinking about Jimmy's mother.
Yeah.
It's a crucial part of this puzzle. How important it is to help her to change her approach and behavior, and to help her also to remain it, to change it really successfully. It's
Yeah, and making link with what you're doing. Of course, we had to take care of the mother in this situation.
Just by way of follow-up, how did you mobilize that family? You got a disabled mother, can't get down the stairs. I'm sure she feels terribly disempowered. What did you, what,
Our main need from the beginning was what will happen to my child if I'm not there, because she was sick. So we said we'll be around. We'll put up a network around your family, your child, and we will take care of that. Okay, and that's what happened anyway. But our main need was that when we said we will work together on that, be reassured you're not alone with that problem. She really got involved with us quite a lot. That we did many home visits to do that. I was visiting that place frequently. We became very close. Hélène was involved in that too. And but her needs, what will happen with my child when I'm not there? And she anticipated that she would die the next years. It happened. But when she mainly she said this is her need, the security of the child also. But since we involved the child in different activities and we became very close with that child too, she was. He stopped flying around. We put he couldn't leave by the window. I don't know what we did, but we closed the window in some way. That's how it happened. Yeah, but don't any other ideas? Yeah.
I'm thinking that Jimmy, although he's 6, but he's so active and energetic, and if we twist the situation that he becomes the one in charge, then this could help him. Having him have not only a big brother, but a small brother, someone he's taking care of, or he's put in charge of his mother's health, or something he feels he is making a difference. This could make a big difference in the child's perception of life, because when he feels that he is not the one they perceive him, everyone perceives him as a mischieving, like bad behavior boy, but the boy who actually does something really important. And we were talking here before that even kids who are very, very young, they feel the necessity to do something. So if to give him something meaningful to do, I think that would make a difference as well. Because there's a lot of research which shows that children of this age would prefer not to play, but to actually work with real instruments and produce something. And so if the production is the actual care for someone meaningful, a mother or a little brother or someone who's misbehaving, then he all of a sudden is in a totally different opposite position. And this could, what do you think?
He was a very angry child of the situation he was in, because the mother was sick. He knew about it. He couldn't do much about it. He was trying to help the mother, but in the wrong way, being disruptive and everything that frequently happened. But he was angry. The father was in jail. His sister was not really available. He didn't know most of the time where she was. But we, the main thing we did was try to create a different way to attach himself, to involve himself in like in school, academic, and he got involved really. He kept good result. He was very productive intellectually because he was very intelligent. So we create this kind of secure attachment with the big brother. With the mother was, her anxiety was lower because she knew we were around and we were working on that. He received medication because he was ADHD also.
Yeah. Yeah.
On les autres,
Yeah.
No, but was there other suggestion from you?
Yes.
Well, I mean, I
think mine is maybe similar to what you're talking about, Tatiana. I was a drama teacher, so I have no expertise in most of what you're talking about. But if I was his teacher and I was doing drama with those children, after I had talked to him and heard his, I would have offered him the opportunity to be my assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And however he would define that. I mean, yeah, and then see where that goes. So that instead of, and literally having him close to me rather than, so as long as he was in the room. And I don't know where that would have gone, but that's what my
We use a
instinct would have
lot.
been to
Art
do.
therapy is really a tool we use a lot with this kind of children. Either drama therapy, musicotherapy, or plain art therapy. It works very well usually. And he had so many talent, in fact. So many people got involved, maybe with... yeah, that's what we did, in fact. He would remain because there was the first thinking of most of the entrepreneurs was, okay, we put him in security somewhere so he will stop being a bad child. But it was not the right thing to do because of the attachment problem, the identity problem. That would have he would have gotten worse, in fact. So we agreed to that. The mother was accompanied by a social worker, and we organized some respite. We have another organization which is for respite. We can give respite to our families, sleeping away and things like that. The big brother came in rapidly to give respite also, and he could go to the big brother house and stay there for a few days. Even, when the mother died, he was there to take care of the child and to take him with his family. Many after-school activities to work on his anger and have him close to us, in fact, so he could do positive thing instead of negative thing. The big friend, we talk about it. They wanted higher dose of medication, but that was not the issue. The only thing we wanted is that he is attentive enough to succeed, and he could probably understand more rapidly than any other child what was going on. If he was attentive 5 or 10 minutes, he would catch everything. So we didn't want to increase the medication to calm him down too much, because we wanted to have him with his full potential to succeed. We followed him very closely all the way up, and all kind of measures were put on to support. When the mother died, there was this, Hélène got in touch with the father. Je vais trop vite. Non, on n'a pas fini, on a fini dans le temps. Là. We're time off.
I just want to make link with what you said, Tatiana. Our after-school activities, we have all sorts of after-school activities, and actually they are designed according to the children's needs. They're not designed, and let's say we have 10 weeks of yoga and 10 weeks of box. This is not the way it works. We just create activities according to the kids that we have, what are their needs. And this is where often they can take responsibilities. And Hélène will present eventually the few initiatives that were put forward. I'm thinking about the young reporter, for example, Lily journalist. You'll talk about it. But these are activities that allow kids to take responsibility, to be in charge of something and to have a role and a say in things. So through these activities, we sort of work with Jim too. So that completes
so
the...
So this is the plan after the 1 hour meeting?
The first, the first...
How old is Jimmy today?
He's more than 20.
Is he in any way involved today in any of your activities?
Not anymore, because he's not living in Montreal anymore.
Oh,
but he's working.
I thought, you know, sort of U-turning and helping you out with kids that doesn't go out again.
But he was, well, Ellen will talk about it, he was follow-up, he was...
We'll take a break and
Yeah.
Ellen will...
Which is also a great pleasure. So without further ado, Ellen, who is the founder of Integrated Lore, who is a lawyer, and who is a huge part of this whole endeavor, social community pediatrics, and with a lot of innovative ideas which allow to create the circle of a child, the music garage, and many other incredible projects. All yours.
Thank you for being here. Yes, I'm a lawyer, but I consider myself more like a social entrepreneur. And you'll see why. Somebody asked me, are you still doing law? If I'm not doing law because I'm not before a court. But you'll see, I hope, I'll convince you that being a lawyer is only one part of, like Gilles said, is also a doctor, physical doctor. I'm also a lawyer, so it helps for a different reason. So I'll take back the idea of Jimmy and bring a little light on the rights, because people are afraid of law, but in this world, we all live in a legal world without you knowing it, maybe. But when you buy a pen, it's a contract you've done, a sale and buying. So it's already, when you take the bus, it's already a contract, a transportation contract. We live in a legal world, but we don't see it that way. So when we talk about law, it's not very strange. It shouldn't be strange to you. And you'll see why. When you are in the social world, you see needs that are not being met. Well, a lawyer will see rights that are being violated. All of this you're working with. Have you seen incomplete diagnosis? This is a reality, because a doctor would see a child alone in his office and address physical needs, and another would address mental needs. You know, I went to a doctor, and you'll see I'm coughing here and there, and I said, would this medication for my bronch, helps? Yeah, helps, because I've got asthma, and he's got sinuses, things like that. He said, well, I'm just working here. I'm not working from there to there. So, you know, this is the same thing for children. If they are hurting there, and I'm going to make a really general statement there. In the ideal world, we would look at the global health. In the even better world, we would look at the global health based on children's rights. And this is what we are trying to do in community health, social pediatrics. So there's different visions, different beliefs, different approaches. You talk about cultures, this should be speaking to you. For instance, the Western society and the Aboriginal society, which I know better. I could take another society if I knew about it. I know better Aboriginal society. In our Western society, we think the child is to be silent. A good child is somebody who behaves. He doesn't speak when the adult speaks. He sits down. He is not being heard. Because the infant in the Latin word, it means somebody who doesn't speak. Someone has to carry the voice for the child. We want to protect him, so we have to interpret for him. We think we will have to carry him because he's too young. We want to protect him from the horror of this world he's living in. He sees it. Korczak was living in the worst era that you could think of. He was protecting his children, but not speaking for them. He was having them being part of their life. And we haven't learned from that. So we have to think back what he was doing and try to live in his spirit. So we think parents have to raise their children and according to the accepted dominant norms, right? If I hit my child, it's no longer acceptable in this society. It was when I was younger, you know, and teacher used to hit children, not me because I was a bit younger, and by the time I was at school, it was not acceptable any longer. But some society arrive here, and it's acceptable for them to hit their children. And who are we to judge? We can only help, you know, bring to an acceptable, because I don't think it's acceptable to hit a child. But I was hit. And, you know, I didn't hit my child. So we have to learn. But when they arrive, they have to learn quicker because we judge them. So the system is based on secret. And if you hit your child, I'm going to report on you because I want to protect your child. So I'm going to take the phone and I'm going to be protected because I'm going to call youth protection and I'm going to say the child is in danger because he's being hit. See? But that's done. I've done my work. It's anonymous. The state has exclusive decision-making power. You want to help in the society, but you have no say because I am the state, I am the youth protector, and I have the law giving me the power to decide on what is going to happen with your child. I can involve you, but you have to collaborate with me. Otherwise, you're not going to see your child anymore because you're a bad parent. You're incompetent. How do you feel when I say you're incompetent? You feel incompetent. You believe me because I'm the state. I believe your child is incompetent. Your child is no good. Your child is misbehaving in school. Wow, you know, I'm not a good parent. I didn't raise my child properly. The child is normally absent in the decision because we are experts. We know better. We know better for the child because we know we are doctors, we are lawyers, we have all the answers. All they have to do, they are recipient. They have to just do what we say. You take your pills, do your homework, do whatever I say because I'm the expert here and I know what's best for you. So you don't need to be there because you're young. And whatever you have to say, it's fine, but you're too young to know. You know, you're not, like Janusz Korczak used to say, excuse me, you're not, he didn't say that, but you're not wise enough. You know, I'm going to tell you whether you are wise enough to participate in the decision-making that regards you and whether you're capable to understand. I'm going to do that. That means I'm wiser than you. I'm more, you know, capable than you because I'm an adult. Korczak, what did he say? he met adults that are not as wise as children, as not as capable of participating to the decision. He met children who were more wiser. Have you met children like that? Really, eh? When you give them the power to participate, they do participate. So, the decision is imposed on the child. In the perfect world, the Aboriginal world, where my mom's come from and where I worked across the country for a while, being a child is a being of light. You know, I don't know whether I translated enough, properly. It's endowed with strength. They have gifts. The child expresses himself and is heard, even very young. There's a Professor Gay who studied the Innu. He's in Quebec. She's studied the Innu nation in Quebec. And the child, she moved towards the mother, the grandmother, for protection. So do you interpret this like she is not attached to the mother? The mother is there, you know, but she moves to the grandmother for protection. And when she was, the mother, she gave the child to the grandmother. In their tradition, you can do that, but that doesn't mean that you are not attached to your child. It means that I'm not ready, I have to do things for myself. I know you're better, my child, with my mother. But that doesn't mean I cut the relationship. I mean, I trust that you are going to be better, but I'm there. And in this world, we cannot do that. You have to choose a caregiver, and in the youth protection, sometimes, often, they cut you have to be with a foster care, so maybe you're not, it's going to be too complicated to be with natural family. You know, you have to be adopted, so we have to cut the affiliation. So we have to ask children what they think about that, and we meant to do that. Really, in reality, we're going to do that with children. What do you think about this rule? So the community shares the responsibilities. Question?
Yeah, could I just, could I just ask something about this?
Sure.
I think this is very interesting, but it looks very kind of black and white.
Yes, that's the reason why I did that. It's not, it's the real world. It's the, when you go to day one, the philosophy of Western society compared to the philosophy of Aboriginal society.
Okay, so, because, I mean, we all enjoy a bit of Western society bashing, we could do that, but surely it's a kind of continuum. It's much more complex because within Western society there are many attitudes and behaviours which are far from that, and so it's probably, there's a scale of things. And if you look at traditional societies, Aboriginal, tribal societies, there's many atrocities to children. So, to put it in this, it almost comes like this is the wonderful world is over there and the horrible world is over there. So I'm sure you accept that there's a lot of nuances in.
That's why I said in the ideal world, in the ideal world. It's not one is better than the other. It's just like, even you talked about culture. It's just like to bring you in your mind that one is not better than the other, but we can learn from the other. We can learn from other cultures.
Yeah, sorry, maybe I haven't understood.
Yeah.
Are you saying that this is Aboriginal society?
That's Aboriginal philosophy. In this world, you just go on Hastings, you see that it's not the case, right?
Okay.
And in the Western society, it's not all like this. Yeah. And there's reason why children are kept silent, or children, we call them infants, and there's reason why we we develop a world of children, a world of adolescents, a world of adults. We have no time to talk about this right now. But I was just wanting to show you that there's different realities in this world based on cultures. It's not one better than the other.
No, I wasn't saying it's better than the other.
It's just a different philosophy towards the child.
For me, it's something what is cultural taken for granted into civilizations or circles or cultures, and maybe what's wrong and what good is because of something or against something. Yes, many good things in Western societies that I think we can do against, I don't know, this, for example, approaches or features.
Mm-hmm. It's just learning from one another, not judging.
But
Yes.
my understanding is that the way we present that is that both utilize their basic values in different ways. The Aboriginal culture, probably in most cultures, the child is someone, being of light, basically. But we lost contact with the child completely in the Western society. In Aboriginal society, they lost that too, their values, because they were assimilated and they were not able to identify their children. We're not either. We're both wrong, in fact.
But if I can go on, this is not the idea for you to say, oh, this is good, this is bad. It's not why I'm showing this. I showed that to my colleagues and they had the same reaction. Are you planning, this is good and this is bad? No. Because I said I could have put Jewish society there. I could have put Iranian society. I don't know about them. So I put what I know, Aboriginal society. But whatever is there is just to show you that there's different ways of seeing children in this world. And there's different ways of bringing children in this world, And it's just you have to keep this in mind when you're working with children in this society.
I'm really sorry to interrupt you.
Sure, Guy.
Because I know you want to keep going, but just, I think, to clarify what you're trying to get at is that this isn't true. This isn't accurate. This is an idealized distillation
Exactly.
of the essence of what
That's it.
is beyond, what is underlying the structures and the systems and the bureaucracies that grow from it. That's
Exactly.
the basis. But
Yeah,
it's not true. It's not real.
That's
the
true.
reality is a
Okay.
continuum of all of the
That's it. That's the idea.
Just maybe, because I've been working a long time with UNICEF on the issue of female genital mutilation in traditional societies and, the atrocity of that. And to imagine that traditional tribal societies are wonderful and they really consider the child to be at the heart of the light is really not true in that case.
This is the ideal philosophy, okay? Just like you explained perfectly. You see? And the point of this is to see that when you deal with a child, he has a background with philosophy, with culture, with values that may not be the same as you, but you come from the dominant culture. And the dominant culture, the dominant norms are imprinted in law. So you have to be careful when you see a child and you see a child in the complete world. It does confrontation. This is the point. See? So, there's 5 keys to respect children's fundamental right to develop their full potential. There's probably more, there's probably, and you probably add. But the important point here is that every children, regardless of the caretaker, social economic status or values or philosophy of life or whatever, background of cultural identity, they have the fundamental right to have every opportunity to be healthy and to develop their full potential when being recognized as a full human being. And as Korczak said, not as a human in becoming. This is fundamental. You have to see the child as a human, full human being, and we say in community social pediatrics, full citizen, not half. Full citizen, with all the meaning that it brings. You have to think, there's 5 keys, I say. So the first one is think out of the box. Okay? And you will need this to work with Jimmy, because his life is not easy, just like any other kids that you work with. And this is fundamental, and remember this, out of any other keys that you will see today, imagination is what will serve you, because in this world, it's not perfect. So this program is not going to be for Jimmy because he's 6, and this program is for 9 to 12. And this program is not for children who has mental problem. It's for children who are angry. And this, you fall into, so at the end of the day, you have to create something for Jimmy out of the box. You have to use the imagination. Because every children have a gift, right? That's across any culture, I'm pretty sure. But to develop this gift, you need opportunities. And to have opportunities, really, you cannot just say, hey, mother, give opportunities to your child. You're not a good mother if you don't, because your child needs to be developing his skills. You need to have a lot, like the school, like the community brings opportunities. A lot of people bring opportunities to the child to develop their skills. This is the key, and you have to work in partnership. And then you have to work what I call transsystemic. Transsystemic work, like the school, like you said, the school, but usually like health system works in the health system. The school works with the health, with the school, and the school can work with the health system, at one point everybody works in their own field. Even if we want to collaborate, the natural is that I'm a lawyer, I'm trained to be as a lawyer, so I bring my little patient, like client with me, and what we say together, it's going to stay together, And then the doctor would, I'm going to work with you, and we're going to do this, and what you say, it's going to stay together. And it's the same, we have this, kind of behavior that we want to protect the child, but we are the key person for the child. We think that. But the child can have different caregivers and be attached to a number of persons, not just one, a number of persons. The teacher is important. The mother is important. But maybe the coach is important, the trainer. Maybe a friend is important. He has different, element in the life that he cannot be attached to. And that's transsystemic work that brings equity to the child. We read the convention as a whole. Lawyers, we know that when we read the law, we have to read the law as a whole, not just one article, and to respect the spirit of the legislator, the law. But we have to do the same for the convention. If I want to protect the child, I have to make sure that I'm not breaching another principle. I put 7 principles there. UNICEF might have 12 or 8, but for the purpose of our work, I managed to put the 41 rights of the child under 7 principles. So you have to be careful when you want to respect the child to be healthy and grow healthy, not to undermine the other principles.
I want to know how you view rights and principles differently
Sorry?
I want to know the difference between rights from your perspective and principles. Or...
Well, that's just words. It's just like one principle regroups a number of rights. So the 41 rights are like, I have a table and we worked on this, and actually there's a capsule and a training on the what you call the portal, the website, that you can go through the 7 principles with the rights that are attached
This is more
to that.
practical. When you deal with, in clinic in evaluation, it's you have your 7 principle well in memory. 41 rights, I get lost.
Your principles are an amalgamation of the, of the rights.
Yes, it's a classification.
I was surprised as a lawyer. I was surprised when I was meeting with Helen and Jill and some others yesterday that on probably 2 or 3 occasions, Helen talked about ensuring that those rights were considered as part of the process to go into the meeting. So these are not things, for me, what the message I heard from that conversation was these are things when you are meeting with the child and the family, and I'm assuming, yesterday we were talking about this preliminary meeting for evaluation and identification of issues. But these are not esoteric concepts. These are principles that you look at when you go into the meeting, is what I'm understanding. And the other thing that I've reflected on because of my own work over the years is it's frequently the agencies that are supposed to support the child, they're the ones that are breaching the principles. So we see the child is failing or the parent is failing, but the parent, because they lost the child, is moved into a 1-bedroom suite, but now they can't get the child back because they're in a 1-bedroom suite. Those are rights of the child that are being breached. So for me, it was really informative to see that you, as you are working even in that preliminary meeting, you are reflecting on what those principles are. And I think for me, that means it's as important that we know those principles. Yes. And 7's much easier than 43, yeah. But we know those principles and think about them when we go into the meeting.
Yes.
So that's the lesson.
Yes. Even more, in the Community Social Pediatric Center, the 7 principles are in the napron, like a small card, and they are on the tables, and a lot are on the walls. And the children can read them, and the doctor use them as reading, can you read this? Children enjoy civil rights and liberties, including being heard and participate. And then they start asking questions to the child, and the child says, oh, I have a right for family being involved. And, one of them, in France, actually, they use Obelix and Asterix. Maybe you don't know of these characters. They have a menhir, and they have 12 rights there. And I used that in the beginning, and I put that at the height of the child. And one child was getting out of the clinic, and she was tall enough, and she could read because it's in the, very easy to read. And she started crying. And you were there, and you say, why are you crying? And she pointed, I don't have this. And that was my family. I don't have this right. My family is not there. My family is being stolen from me. So this is so important. And you see how we work with this. It's not only for adults. You see that children need to know that. And they know that, and they are very, very keen to know their rights and obligations. So really involve the child based on the right to fully participate. Well, what's missing here?
The child.
The child is missing. Can't talk about the child if the child is not there. The child is going to guide you, like we said. But the family is there. The family is an expert as much as the health sciences experts, social sciences experts. And each of them are able to bring something to the table, something very important, not just for the solution, but to identify the source of toxic stress. Does it ring a bell when I said toxic stress? It means everything that makes you sick, everything that makes your global health not adequate. Social sciences need to be there too, because if you're trying to do everything by yourself as a doctor or alone as a social worker is here because they're trying to do a lot of things. have services access and, work with relationship. But doctor less, lawyers less, so we work together to bring all the expertise. But remember I said we live in the legal world? Well, we have to think that way too when we work close to a child, if we want to have global health based on children's rights. So the lawyer is not always there in the clinic, but the doctor knows about the 7 principles, the social worker, the educator, everybody's around the child, they know about the 7 principles. And they know that to have access to justice, those rights needs to be respected, but they also need some doors so that these rights are respected. And then when those rights there's a flag, then there's a door towards legal aid services that we have in Quebec, but there's also legal aid services. Sometimes they don't take that kind of, breach. They will, according to law, only take a certain subject and only for people that have low incomes. So sometimes you fall in between. So you have to have other doors, and you work with pro bono lawyers who are like Suzette and Caroline, for instance, here. And you work also with doctors and social workers who can knock at the door, and most of the time they can solve 95% of the cases that are breach of rights. You don't need the lawyers all the time. When you live, you don't have a lawyer beside you to take the train. You do it naturally because it's in you, like you learn that. But you learn also to defend the rights of the children. And you do it, but you don't call it advocacy. You don't call it, I'm a lawyer because I do that. I go knock at the door of the school because they want to exclude my child and because they think he's ADHD. No, he's deaf. No, he's not opposing. He has selective mutisms. So you have to put words on different specialties, brings different vision to the table. So we've seen that earlier, mobilizing the child and his network. Well, the child has parents. Sometimes they have extended families. They have family networks because families that come from different countries, who you said they arrived here, they didn't choose. Well, the whole family didn't come with them. So but they started doing networking, to have support around them. And these people are very important in the family network. So you have to know that where they are, they exist. And they are keys to help the child. And there are all these other people, the school, health clinic, daycare center, child health society, police. I had a police one time in my circle, the child circle, because he was always involved at home. She was police. She was very tall. Community group. So there's a lot. There's a lot around the child. And often we don't see them. So, Jimmy. Remember we did a lot of work with Jimmy? Well, not at 10 years old. His life kept going, because the child keeps on living.
Yeah. In community social pediatrics, I mean, you meet the child for the first time, and then you might, you do things for him, you help him, you find solutions, and then life carries on, and then new things happen, and the child comes back to you, and you work with him again. We would like to do miracles, wouldn't we? We would like to solve the problem once and for all, and that's it. He can go and live a perfect life, but it's not like that. So in community social pediatrics, we make sure that we follow the child throughout his trajectory. Is it English? Yeah, okay, trajectory. Kids can always come back to us up until they're 18 years old. We will meet them again, and we'll go with the demand. So what happened with Jimmy is that, yes, life brought him new obstacle. Dr. Julien already mentioned that his mom actually died in his arm, you said, like, even. And just before she died, actually, they had a new landlord that had planned to renovate the building, and he was harassing Jimmy's mother because she would refuse to leave, and so they had a housing problem. Jimmy was taking care of his mother. She passed away. After she passed away, he tried to see his father, who has been jailed for a long time. So he was quite out of his life. But he tried to see his father, but he was unsuccessful. And he also had a half-sister, which he tried to find out on Facebook. She was a young adult working the street at night. I think they got in touch, but I'm not sure about this part. You'll take it. And Children's Aid Society refused to explore this option. So he wanted to quit school, though he was really, really good at school. He wanted to quit school because of all what was arriving, and he was being harassed by some students. So continues to...
Well, he was bullying, but in return he was also intimidated. So what comes first?
Yes.
So
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So again, thinking about the 5 keys that Hélène presented to integrate law, how could you walk with Jimmy in his work? And you take 1 minute to think what could be done at this point in his life to help him.
Yeah,
thinking about the rights.
If you remember, the activities was the answer. What can you do for Jimmy? This one is, what could you do with Jimmy? The key is really with.
Well, he has a right to an identity. He has a sister, he has a father. That doesn't mean that he has to be unrealistically romantic about the idea of how they're doing. But not knowing is that, that will always be his default, that his world will be better with those people in his life. So I don't think that child protection has the right not to share with him his family.
They refused. Close the door.
That's why you're there.
That's what I knew about.
How would you work with Jimmy at this point? Yes.
I would sit with him and ask him what he wants to know about his family, and get him to talk about him and tell me everything he knows about his father and his sister and his mother. Because I don't know anything about his family. Just tell me, who are they? What do you?
He doesn't know them.
And then he would tell me that. I don't know them.
Yeah.
Tell me what you don't know, so that I can ask you what you do know, so you can tell me what you want to know.
I want to
and just
see
have
them.
a conversation about everything about them, and maybe they're this, and maybe they're that, and just get him to get out everything he knows.
Remember
And then say,
ideas?
Okay, so how do we now find out more.
Yeah.
And do the internet search with him. Look at Facebook
He did.
with him.
He did.
With him. Walk with him. If he wants to go to a street where she might be, go with him. Go as far as possible with him to what he's searching for, all the way along, asking him, how do you feel about
Youth
this? What do you
protection.
think happens if we find him? What does it mean to be in jail? What your sister's doing? What is she going to be healthy? What do you think she needs? Just explore it so completely that at the end of it, whether he actually has a relationship with him or not, what he does have is the knowledge that he did everything he could and he had a trusted adult that went with him to find out everything that could happen. So the trust is there that it was worth doing, and he had help.
And yes, what do you do if youth protection doesn't want you to do that? They don't want Jimmy to be in contact with his father.
What happens if you do? What do they do to you?
See?
I would start.
Good answer. Imagination. You
What
have to
happens if you
get
do
out
it anyway?
of the
Do they
box.
have to know? Are you supposed to tell them everything you do?
You have to think out of the box.
Yeah, my other piece is what's his social capital? Who else matters in this world? You mentioned this big brother. You have to look at his assets and make sure that his assets are all around him because he's about to lose his mother. And
She's dead.
Oh, she's dead. Oh, I thought she was dying.
She's dead.
He has lost. He's lost his anger. So where are his other assets in this? Because otherwise he's.
So on youth protection, I tell you, I've got a good family for him.
You mean a foster family for him?
Oh yeah, I've got a good
family.
foster family who's going to take him tomorrow. What do you do?
You connect, so he needs somewhere to stay in the meantime, regardless of where he ends up. So connect to the foster parents and use them as advocates for him and his rights, and let the foster parents try to also help him in his search for his family.
He doesn't want to go there. He wants to go see his father. And he's very, very mad that you don't want to have his family with him. He lost his mother.
He has the big brother though, and he can stay with the big brother in the interim where they figure out a plan.
But I get that, but what, in the case where someone doesn't have a big brother, or that's a lot to put on a volunteer who's dedicated to him, but maybe not have the resources as well. So, I don't know how that works. Is that,
If we take a step back though and stop trying to solve the problem and start trying to look at how do we build his capacity and teach him what his rights are, because he will identify what is important to him and what rights he wants to exercise. And then also in the future, if there's other difficulties, he now has more knowledge on how to know what his rights are and say, wait a sec, I haven't been included, I haven't been asked for my opinion, I haven't been included at school or whichever. So if you're doing with rather than for, it's including him in the process, beginning with teaching him what his rights are so he can identify for himself what are the important ones that he wants worked on.
That's the key. That's the key. Working with, means you have to bring him to the knowledge, of the rights. He has rights. It's not somebody else's rights. It's a children's right. They have to know about this. They have to be fully aware of what it means to have children's rights, and they can fully participate afterwards in that. All your answers very great, but we do have people who have power to say no. I have the power to decide for the child. And if you think out of the box, you can bring them with you to work with Jimmy. And this is the key, because you work on children's rights, and the social worker, she wants also to help Jimmy. Even though she works with youth protection, we created youth protection for a reason. We need that. So we have to bring them with us to work with Jimmy. And knowing that Jimmy has rights, we can also inform the social worker about these rights, the 7 principles, and then they don't want to work alone. You know, they want to work with somebody. They want to find solutions. So we bring them to work with us on solutions.
Is there somebody to be with him while he mourns?
Yeah.
While he's furious that his mother is gone and all those other things that he'll be experiencing?
Yes, his big brother in that case. We knew that the mother was going to die, so as Jill said, we built a circle around him in prevention of that. So yeah, the big brother was big, and not only his big brother, but the family of the big brother was involved with him. And we did more than that. You see this? Who said human decided that the circle comes from human? When you look at animals, you can find answers. You know, it's not always ideal. This is not ideal, but it's a circle. It gives us ideas. You think out of the box. So I did a circle. I did a circle with Jimmy, and I empowered him in that that was his circle. That was not the circle of the youth protection or whoever, but one of his solution was to see his father and his sister. He wanted to stay with his father because we found him. We found him, and we found also we connected with his half sister. We did find them, bring them to the circle. And he visited, and the youth protection was there also. So they walk along with Jimmy and us. And he visited the father. He stayed with the father, who had a little apartment, you know, was a studio, can't remember. He was staying with another man also, and so he couldn't really care about Jimmy. And Jimmy understood that, but it wasn't imposed on him. He was, you know, able to understand his life, you know, that his father was not going to be able to care for him. And his sister, so he started to look, can I stay with my sister? So we walked with him and his sister, and he stayed with his sister, but his sister wasn't able to take care of him. But we were always around him. So youth protection was around him, but there's a circle around him, but he explored these things. It worked for a while, you know, but he ended up in foster care. Actually, no, he didn't ended up in foster care. He ended up in the group home in the center for kids. He was, well, I think, yeah, it's a group home, but it's a center. It's not like a group home, it's a center.
The fact that we connected with, helped him connect with the father and the sister was very interesting, because the father and the mother was French Canadian. And he didn't look, he had a look of abroad, Jimmy, and the father was Pakistani. And that was very important for him to know that he had also a daughter from French Canadian. And the half-sister was half African. So he had three identity altogether. He was very happy with that. It was not just the French Canadian, it was three different cultures. It didn't work to stay with them, but for identity it was very, very interesting, very powerful.
And if I can add to this, we were talking about Korczak bearing his little pet, a bird, when he was 5. And it was at that time he learned that he was Jewish. So stripping and what a tragedy, because his friends said, no, you cannot bury a bird and put a cross, because the bird is Jewish as well. But the friend was Catholic. So all of a sudden, at the age of 5, the child learns about a different identity, although at the time he felt he was Polish and he belonged to the Catholic tradition and to this majority. And what a tragedy for a 5-year-old to learn the identity was actually different. And if you give me a minute, my father was born and raised by only a mother because his father was arrested during the Stalinist era in 1937, and he was only 5 at the time. So because the arrest was deep at night, my father never knew what happened actually to his father. And his mother tried to protect him, and because of that, she never told him who his father was. She told him that his father actually got sick, was taken to the hospital, and died eventually. And that's how my father lived until he was 20. 20. And he had a happy life in the Soviet times, but at 20, he had to provide a detailed biography, and he wrote to his mother what happened to my father. Like, give me the details where he was buried. And at the age of 20, he learned, and it is 1951 in the Soviet Russia, he learned that his father, what was called a people's enemy, and was arrested. And to that moment, his mother never knew whether her husband was dead or he was still alive, but somewhere in the camp, concentration camp. Now, the tragedy which my father experienced totally changed his life. I mean, it was an incredible emotional shock. So what I'm saying is, stripping the child or an adult of the identity of any sort is a crime. And it doesn't matter what is behind as a reason. It's usually done for the sake of a child. The people who made a decision, they consider it for the sake of a child. But in fact, that is stripping the child of many important things.
Yeah. Like no identity is like a leaf, without roots.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
It's the same with children. We have many children with fathers in prison, and some mothers.
Yeah.
And they usually won't tell the child. They'll say, oh, he's working hard somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere else.
And
yeah.
that's really bad for the developmental emotion, identity, and so on. It's bad. They need to know where the father, the mother is, and cope with that, and learn to cope with that, and understand why, and so on. But in our society, we hide so many truths to our children.
When we did the circle is not magical. Anything that we do is not magical, The life is not perfect. We do the circle, and, Jimmy ended up in the foster, in the care of the state. But he had roots in the community, and he came back to us. He has roots and he has connection with the community. It's not just like the decision was imposed on him. He was part of the solution, and he understands why. And usually what we see when we work in social work is that the family rely on the people who works with them. You're a doctor, you're responsible for my health. You're a social worker, you're responsible for me because you are being paid for that, And so I only have to be carried. I don't have to walk because you walk for me. So the circle is involving everybody around, and then everybody's responsible. Not just the child is also responsible. He cannot just be carried. He has to walk. Life is not easy. They have to walk. They have to learn. And we learn, but they have to be learning in the protective circle. So they learn that they can actually it was studied in the McGill University, and they found that the circle can restore harmony in the child's life by giving her access to a protective circle in accordance to the 41 rights of the convention. Another thing that we do, remember that the children needs to learn about rights, but not only children needs to be learning about rights, all the people around them needs to learn about the children's rights. So this is my last project, not necessarily the last one, but this is what I'm working on with Laetitia and Caroline and 11 communities in Montreal. It's called Children's Link to Adult Network. And, well, network. My God, that's not, that's dyslexia or what? It's networks. What's that new talk? Networks. Didn't see this, eh? So it's, if the society is not just, can we just get children to work with us? You know, we work with children so that they are aware of their rights. And why did we do children's rights in the first place? Isn't it to build a better society? In my mind it is. So that children's rights, if they are respected, then the children learns to be better at being human. They learn how to respect others. And if we respect one another, despite differences, then I think it's going to be a better society. And we have to help one another. You know, it's not preaching. It's just like logical in living in a society, helping one another and, you know, respecting one another, being curious about the differences. And we have to empower children and youth people and building a protective circle with the community so that they can even propose a solution. Look at this. This is the first cohort. These women, they are all, most of them, disempowered. And when they went through this, it's a course. It's a course on children's rights and responsibilities. There's 3 different levels for children, 3 different levels for adults, and 3 different levels for interveners, the network. So they learn all about what's the children's right. And this little girl, she knows her right. And when the children knows their right and responsibilities, they can be part of the solution. And one child has been so powerful in knowing her rights. She has been able to gather the 2 clans who were fighting together for years. At 9 years old, she was able to gather them because they were fighting over her. They wanting her, you know, and she was able to do a reunion, and it lasts based on her rights. And these women, we've done that also in multicultural setups, and they said, yeah, I was aware of my rights, but now I wish I would have known that better when I arrived in Canada, you know, so that I am able to protect my child better.
I just find in doing children's rights education, it's really important to talk to adults about, it's not a one-time conversation or workshop. It's a continual conversation as people develop and gain more knowledge or understanding of the world around them. It's not because part of the role in my job is to educate young people about their rights. But what I say is, this is not just me. This is everybody needs to be a part of this and continually having conversations with young people about what that looks like.
Yes, exactly. More than that, we have to put in action. Yeah. In action. So the second level is how to be peaceful communicators for children. The third level is how to be social entrepreneurs. Even if I'm 9 years old, if there's a problem there, do I wait for the government to fix it, or do I mobilize the people around me to fix it? They can do that. They've done that. So we put them in action. Just not talking about rights, put them in action and have children putting them in action. So this is also for adults. The first level is knowing about the children's right and their obligation. The second level is to be aware of what's going on in the society. In America, they call it Front Porch Project. It's very interesting. And the second level is based on Front Porch Project, which is, if you look it up, it's really interesting. It's how to train adults to be able to intervene without calling the state necessarily all the time. They can be acting in the society. And the third level is for community social pediatrics, is how to have families helping other families. So it's more than just talk, it's action. And for interveners is how to become a partner of community social partners center. So how do we put the, how as a doctor or educator or social worker or whatever, I am able to be part of the community social pediatrics in the community. Remember that Jimmy was harassed. So in this situation, we had private school students coming, and they said, Dr. Julien, help us, because we are mothers of children being harassed and the school's not going to listen to them, you know. And then Gilles asked me to come in, and I said, well, what can we do? You know, you're in private school, you're outside the community. But what we can do, though, is that we have children who are being harassed also in the public school and in the same situation. So we gathered them in a room, and they started looking at the law of education. And nowhere was there any participation of the child in the law. And so they started to write a manifesto. And we helped them. And we also, with the help of the parents, they sent them, the children went to the parliament to read the manifesto. And the manifesto was also published in Le Devoir, which is a newspaper. It's not enough. It's not enough. We need also to change the law, and we need to change the law with the children, because they read it differently than us. So that's what the next step's going to be. You see this? This just happened about a week ago. These are 4 children from our center. They are trained on children's rights and their obligation, but they are training also other children and adults. This is in New Brunswick, a conference on children, and for the first time, children were conference. They were conférenciers. And this is what a few comments that one participant, a children judge in Congo, said that they told the children that they had made the best presentation. This was in front of adults. A conference on children's rights, no children. Usually like here, where's the children? You know, so we cannot make a conference on children if the children are not. Ah, great. Were they involved in the preparation of that?
They were.
Excellent. How old were they?
I'm sorry.
How old were the children?
16,
Yeah, this is the thing. Children older are asked to come in. In the Moncton conference, they were children, usually 16, 15. These children are 11 years old, 12, 13. One just turned out 12. So we have to remember that younger children, they can participate, and they have things to say.
We started, in my program, we started 3.
Wow. 3? This is excellent. This is excellent. Yes. It should be known. You should diffuse it. Yeah, yes. Well, the children returned with the contract. You remember the first picture at the opening? They were having the adults signing the contract. So, key messages. I'm done. Gilles, à toi. Ben nagyan volt.
So yes, we're running out of time. So this was just.
It's okay. Don't
Yeah?
rush yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Just relax.
I think, yes, this was just to give you an idea of what the sort of initiatives that we put forward in Montreal at the center with Hélène and Dr. Julien. I think what we would like you to take with you today are these key messages that welcome and address the child and family network in a warm and non-judgmental manner. Always, I think Hélène repeated it, that work with the children and the family. They have to be part of the solution. They have to be part of the discussion. They are the people who actually live the situation, so they really have to be part of it. We're not, it's nothing new to them, but just acknowledging what they are living and that it's normal or not normal that they have to live this, and just saying this exists, this shouldn't be, and it could be otherwise, it's already something that helps them to heal and to go forward. Actively listen and readily integrate the child and family network into this decision-making process. So always include them in the decision-making process. Try to evaluate the child's difficulty and decrypt, try to identify the sources of toxic stress in close partnership with the child, the family network, and professionals from the medical, social science, and legal field. I mean, the more people there are around the child, Dr. Julien mentioned it, the more people there are around the child, the more likely you are to find a solution that will be fine for the child. Share pertinent information in presence of the child and the family. There's no need secrets. They know their own secrets, so you can actually share them with them. It just makes it, okay, normal to them. Elaborate a coherent action plan is a circular organizational model. So often the child, they receive many services, but all in different places. So try to be coherent. When everybody share the same information, when everybody get the same understanding of a situation, you're more likely to arrive at coherent solution that the family and the child will actually follow, sorry. And read the Convention of the Right of the Child as a whole to contribute to social justice, but you are already doing this in these 2 weeks. So these are like the main messages. Dr. Julien, would you like to add something?
I just want to say that we're not in theory, okay? We're practitioner, and we're using all evidence-based knowledge to put up a better practice every day. We have a method which is very interesting, practically again. So we develop tools to use practically every day when we're sitting with a child, a family, and gathering in the circles or evaluation. We use all those tools, mainly the convention, to address all issues, but the method is really at reaching out all these people who usually refuse to be helped because they think they're so bad and not valuable. So we're there just to accompany these families, these children to success, and we do succeed a lot to bring them to success. Most of our kids get better. We lose some of them, but we have so many now. We're all together in the province of Quebec. We followed more than 8,000 children, very vulnerable families. Just the garage and music, we didn't talk about it, which is Hélène developed this concept of a specialized community, social pediatric community center. 800 children every week comes to practice music together. These children wouldn't have access to music in any way, even at school. And the garage music is specialized because it's the collective practice of music, but it's also clinic in social pediatrics that we do there. We also have a team to support them. These children who have learning difficulties or who leave school, we bring them back to school, supporting them with special education, educators and so on. So we're developing all kinds of tools to address these issues, vulnerable children, because we believe that we're not a good society when we let so many children fall into cracks. It's unrespectful. It's against all concept of equity. So that's why we developed this approach, which make its way up now in the province, in Canada, and elsewhere. But still, we're practitioners. We don't want to train you with theory. We want to train you with tools. And again, the only way to do it is to love children. There's no other way. If you love children, you can do that. You're accepted in the group, in our network, to develop your own way to do it. You don't have to do exactly what we're doing. We're there to inspire you to think out of the box, but to respect children and to love them. That's all we want to do when we meet people like you. So thank you.
Thank you so much.